NIKKE has a lot of daily systems to provide you with lots of different resources necessary for progressing your account. One of the most important dailies you're going to have to do is Anomaly Interception. Anomaly Interception lets you challenge one of 5 boss fights 3 times per day. There's one boss for each elemental type, and each boss has a slightly different loot table. So you can target farm helmets, chest piece, gloves, boots, or custom modules. Now, one thing to note about these rewards is that Kraken does not drop any of the containers that will give you manufacturer gear. So if you want to target farm Kraken every day, you're not going to be getting any pieces of manufacturer gear. If you were to do, say, Harvester for boots, you would get random pieces of manufacturer gear and some custom modules. So it's a bit of a trade-off. Kraken is going to be your best source for custom modules, but it's going to come at that cost of not getting any pieces of manufacturer gear. So as much as Kraken is talked about as the go-to boss to farm, you can't only farm Kraken. You're always going to get rewards whether you clear the fight or not. The amount of rewards you receive is based on how many health bars you remove from the boss. Clearing one of these fights entirely is going to take a very stacked team with the appropriate elemental advantage, overload gear, and NIKKE levels. So each boss has a few different mechanics, so I'll go through a crash course with you so you have a basic understanding of how each fight works. Let's start with Ultra. Ultra has 3 breakable parts: the core and its 2 bags on the side. You want to break the core as soon as possible, but you don't want to leave those bags on either side up for too long, because if they are, they're going to start attacking all of your NIKKEs with projectiles that are just going to end up doing too much damage for you to keep up with. Having a NIKKE here that's able to just passively deal with those is going to be essential. So aside from that, Ultra has 2 attacks that you really have to pay attention to, and they also happen to come one after another. So the first one is a shockwave. It's gonna charge up and hit all of your NIKKEs, and if any of them take damage, they're gonna get stunned for a long time. This can be countered by putting your NIKKEs in cover, or you can use Indomitability to avoid the stun. Also, if you happen to have shielding units, if this attack hits a shield, you're not gonna get stunned. Secondly, Ultra's going to charge up and do a poison spray attack. This happens immediately after the shockwave and can be dealt with in a similar fashion. You can put all of your NIKKEs in cover for the duration of the attack. If you get hit by it, it's going to leave a nasty debuff on your NIKKEs that's going to do periodic damage for a time. And unless you have very good sustain in your team or a way to cleanse it, you're probably going to lose some of your characters here. And aside from that, much like every boss, there's going to be portions where you have to shoot red circles that are guarded behind shields that can only be penetrated by elemental advantage NIKKEs. Pretty straightforward fight. Next, let's talk about Harvester. There's a lot of passive damage that goes out in Harvester, and it's constantly going to be summoning raptures that you're going to have to take care of. So having good passive AoE in your team is good. Snow White is incredibly strong here. To start off, you're going to want to break the helmet on Harvester to expose the core. And then after that, you're just railing into the core to do as much damage as you can. Harvester doesn't have any shielded phases like the other bosses have, but it will summon a sequence of red circles that have really tight checks. They're going to appear one after another, and you're gonna have maybe like a second to hit the circle as soon as it pops up. Otherwise, it's a wipe. Next, we have Kraken. So Kraken has 4 parts that periodically respawn throughout the fight, as well as a core that's exposed for the second half of the fight. Essentially, you're gonna wanna kill the big tentacles that are up front, because if they stay up for too long, they're going to hit all of your NIKKEs for a reasonable amount of damage. Kraken does have a shielded phase with red circles that you have to break. Periodically, Kraken will start charging up both of its tentacles to attack all of your NIKKEs. You can soak this by putting your NIKKEs in cover, but it is going to hit harder the longer the fight goes on. So you're going to want to manage your cover health carefully. And just like Ultra, there's a little intermission phase where you have to destroy some circles, and then the core is going to be exposed. And those big tentacles you were killing before, are going to have much less health, but they're going to appear much more frequently and attack more frequently. And then it's just a rush to kill the boss or do as much damage as you can. Again, another pretty straightforward fight. Next, we have Mirror Container. So Mirror Container has a few different phases, and it's probably the most mechanically challenging fight in Anomaly Interception. So the way it works is phase 1 is pretty straightforward. Mirror Container will summon glass slippers that will target and shoot a NIKKE. You can break them, but they generally don't do too much damage, so you can probably just ignore them. But after that, there's going to be an intermission phase where the boss goes away. You have to destroy some red circles, and then starts phase 2. So in phase 2, Mirror Container is going to spawn 4 glass slippers, and every so often, it's going to start charging one of them. At this point, that slipper will be vulnerable to a single instance of damage. And once it is hit by that single instance of damage, it's either going to be enough damage to break it, or it's just going to go invulnerable again. Mirror Container is going to have a defensive buff for each slipper that is alive. And this is going to massively reduce the damage that you deal to Mirror Container. So this is the real challenge of the fight. Managing your damage and making sure to put everyone in cover when you're ready to take that shot on the slipper to kill it in one shot. But aside from that, you're gonna have to break a few more circles, and it's just pumping as much damage into the core as you can possibly do. And then lastly, we have Indivilia. So in phase 1, Indivilia is gonna have 3 breakable parts, both of her pincers and her tail. And she's also going to send out some destructible projectiles as she slowly walks towards you. You're going to want to break the pincers, and then once she gets a little bit closer, you can break the tail. Also, during this phase, Indivilia is going to constantly be shooting your machine guns at a NIKKE and doing a lot of damage. This can quickly eat up your cover or your health if you don't have some kind of way to keep all of your NIKKEs healthy. After she slowly walks at you a couple of times, there's going to be a transition where she turns into a giant serpent. She's going to AoE your entire team, and then you're going to have an intermission phase where you have to break some circles. And then you just continuously shoot her in the face until she's dead. So all of these fights are pretty straightforward, maybe except for Mirror Container, just because the mechanic is a little bit janky and unforgiving. But otherwise, Anomaly Interception is just a really big stat check. And that's pretty much all you need to know about Anomaly Interception. If you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.